Hi there, everybody. Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. Going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of February 17th through 23rd, and have one of the lightest weeks in a long time. So it may not be a very long vlog this time, guys. Maybe not get the full half hour. Really, you talk about the sun going into Pisces this week, and we've got Mercury squaring Jupiter, and both of them still in weak signs. And Mars finally goes direct. Yay, right? Right? It's been a long time since early December. We'll be going direct next Sunday. And then as soon as it does, Mercury is going to trine that stationary Mars. So that's about all I've got to talk about this week. So I'm going to do a little info first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that is on YouTube. And I'd really like you to become a follower, especially if you're checking it out. And if you have a YouTube account, so easy to do. Just, become a follower. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, though, because they're not going to tell you when the blog is posted unless you do that. Okay, so I've got a lot of followers, but I think some of you guys are missing it because you forget the notifications. Then remember, the blog is also available on podcast. It was a podcast for many years before it was a video blog. So just go to your favorite podcast thing, look up Astrological Winds channel, just do a search. I know Apple iPodcast definitely has it, and I know a bunch of others pick it up off of Buzzsprout every week. Also, Instagram, Astrological Winds channel has an Instagram page. I put the link to the blog in the newsreel every week. Sometimes I put some extra information during the week. I know I've kind of slacked on that in the last few months. Not as much time, but I would really like to get back into that and maybe get an extra entry or two. And that's always just in comment form, so it doesn't commit you to a video or an audio. You just got to read a couple sentences and maybe something special happening that day. So check that out. And then the best place always is www.astrologicalwinds.com. That is my website. I'd really like you to check that out too. Not only does it have all the blogs from the last few months posted on the blog tab on top, including the current one, but it also has a calendar page for every week where you can look at some of the Earth holidays going on that week. And it has the menu for all my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years, been doing charts for that long, was trained to do them. I would love to do your chart. The menus there with the different types, there's a lot of different types. Check them out, the costs are there too. I can work with you financially. Also, it looks like I'm going to be starting a beginning astrologers class. It looks like we got the minimum of 4 students that I require. So anybody else who's been hesitating about that, it's time to jump on the wagon now. I'll probably get that going within a month or so. So get ready for that. And like I said, contact is on the website. It's matthue823@gmail.com. Also, if you have a group and you're looking for some kind of group event, I'm available for that too. I will go into more of that at the end, get ready for that class. Any of you who are ready for that. Okay, so this week, not a real lot going on. Okay, which, is nice, although there is this really big shift of Mars finally going direct. Like, remember, when planets go direct, there's a lot of intense backwards energy that still is around that last station before they slowly start to release. And then Mars will have a shadow period that'll go all the way till the end of April. So first off, Sun into Pisces, that's Tuesday, that's tomorrow. So the end of the zodiac, right? The last sign of the zodiac. And when that comes every year, we know that in the Northern Hemisphere anyway, our winter is almost over. They say the back of winter breaks right around the time that the sun goes into Pisces. So, the sun in the Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. Like I said, it's the one that's most connected with the great unconscious, the collective unconscious that we all share, the spiritual energy, the subtle energy, the energy that connects all of us together underneath that, a lot of times we're just not very aware of in our conscientious mind, but we react to this energy all the time. And that means when the sun goes into Pisces, we can get very sensitive to our environment, very sensitive to the people around us, in particularly emotionally, because Pisces is a water sign, right? So that has to do with a lot to do with the emotions. So we're really sensitive to picking up emotions. Pisces is like a vacuum cleaner of like psychic and subtle energies, emotional energies, spiritual energies, things that are not concrete, things that are abstract, things that are right brain, not left brain, and it's a mutable water sign. So it's constantly shifting. The moods are always shifting, right? You Pisces people who know have a lot of Pisces in their charts, sun, rising, moon. You guys, how your moods are constantly shifting, flowing like water, sometimes calm, sometimes the rapids come in and things like that, right? So it can be really hard to explain our emotions. When they're in Pisces, they're complex and they're moving all the time, and they've got this connection to energies that are not very linear and are therefore hard to explain in a very logical manner, right? And so we can be like really, really sensitive in picking up the energy of our environment, sensitive to picking up the energy of other people, and not really understanding where it's actually coming from because it's not very clear. So this can be really, really confusing, right? It can be confusing energy. It's like, where am I picking up this energy? Why? And maybe just from something in the environment or other people around you. Another thing about this on a personal level, because we are so sensitive emotionally, it can be really easily to get our feelings hurt. Like someone just saying something that's a little insensitive, or something not going the way that we want it to go. And it can really, like, we really take it in deep. And, Pisces has a tendency to brood actually when that stuff happens too. It's like kind of retreat, kind of energy instead of wanting to take it on. But, at the same time, because we have this sensitivity, we have great empathy, great sympathy, great compassion. Pisces is the sign of unconditional love. It is ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. And Neptune is the higher octave of love. It's the kind that's non-discriminatory, and it knows that love is a basic energy of the whole universe. In fact, it may be that very energy that holds us all together underneath that Pisces energy. And the thing about Pisces too is, even though we are sensitive to others, right? Most of the time, Pisces is not out to ever hurt anybody. We're really soft and receptive usually in this energy. Now, that being said, Pisces can be the great deceiver too. Like Pisces, when it's having trouble with reality, which can happen a lot because there's so much idealism built into Pisces that many times it doesn't integrate very well with cold, hard reality. So when we're struggling with that, that's when the negative part of Pisces can start to creep in. We can kind of get deceptive. We can get secretive. We can even get to the point of telling lies to try to just get along, and get by. And that is just going to add to the confusion of any kind of situation that we're creating. So that is one of the negative ways to deal with Pisces. One of the other negative ways to deal with Pisces is, yes, there's this high degree of sensitivity, not only to the environment but to other people, and we will need breaks. Pisces it's good to get alone time and just be able to be in a quiet, meditative, contemplative state to kind of just integrate and not take in any more of that emotional input, right? But the thing is, like, with that kind of energy, sometimes that is turns into escapism very quickly. We all have ways of like escaping. It doesn't necessarily mean, imbibing in, let's say, alcohol or running away. There's all kinds of comfort things that we use to escape hurt emotions. So that is something we have to be very aware of, that if we have habitual escape mechanisms, if we have problems with substances for escaping or whatever it may be, this is a time of the year where it can be where we're so sensitive that we really can fall down those holes or fall off the wagon, whatever you want to call it, very, very easily. But this needing to withdraw is something very natural, right? And Pisces is a highly creative sign too. It has a lot to do with Venus energy, very high creative visions in Pisces. So some of the better ways to use that energy when we have our space and we're breaking through is to use a lot of the inspiration that we get. Pisces sees those connections behind everything, and there's a beauty, there's a romantic way of looking at the world. It's like an impressionist painting, right? It's like, all those impressionist painters, that like, just this fuzzy way of looking at the world. There's a lot of nature in it. There's a lot of beauty in it. There's a lot of color. There's a lot of shape and energy. And there's a lot of spirit too. Pisces is the most spiritual sign too. So it's a highly creative sign, a highly spiritual sign. So when we're feeling that sensitivity, that's the better choices rather than the escape mechanisms and the escape hatches, is to take some of the energy that we're being inspired by and put it into artistic expression or whatever your creative with expression, or some kind of spiritual journey, spiritual study quietly, meditation, contemplation, spiritual journeys, maybe even a spiritual teacher. But like, we just have to remember, otherwise, when we get into that space, and especially if we end up being alone, that we have a tendency to take some of that energy that's so confusing and has hurt us so much in our sensitivity level and look for something to numb it. So, instead, this is another way of dealing with it. And remember, we are going to feel emotions, and we're going to feel them shifting rapidly. They're going to change a lot during this energy. And we're on our emotional intuition is going to be right on. We can really trust how we're feeling about things, how we feel that other people are feeling, and we can respond on that. We are on the right side of our brain mainly, and we're very imaginative. We're very receptive. Like I said, we're very soft, but we can really flow like water. Just think of that, like as a meditation, even. Let's think of like meditating on water and how water just flows, and can just move around things. So, we're not going to be very realistic about the real world. And we have to be very careful of not allowing others to deceive us too. Even if we can stay on the up and up and not fall into deceptive or secret type behavior, we have to remember other people may be. So a lot of times it's not the best month to make agreements, especially solid agreements, because we may not have all the information we have. We may even be purposely being misled or deceived. All right. But just remember, yes, there's going to be times during this month where the real world can bring us down and get us depressed, just the hard edges of it. And Pisces wants to soften those edges. It wants to erode them like water softens a sharp edge and turns a sharp stone into a polished stone. That's what Pisces wants to do for us. So if we can take that contemplative energy, take some of that and get inspired by it, put it into our creative process, our art, our spirituality, that would be a better way of dealing with it. And yes, if the world gets really tough on you, and you need to use one of your escape mechanisms for a day or two, there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't let it consume you and bring you to the point of being the great deceiver, the deceiver and the liar and all that. All right, very spiritual energy, and it gives us the ability to see where we're all connected, which is something that this world could really use right now. Thursday, Mercury is squaring Jupiter. Now, remember, Mercury is in Pisces, right? What I was just talking about, the sign I was just talking about. And last week it went into Pisces. And if you remember, traditionally, Mercury is the weakest in Pisces. It is in detriment and fall because it's about cool, intellectual, logical energy. And when it's in Pisces, Pisces is the antithesis of all that. It's not cool, it's warm. It's not intellectual, it's emotional. And it's not logical, it's driven by feelings. So Mercury has a really hard time functioning normally in Pisces, but it can tap us into some great creative visions, which was all about what Mercury square Jupiter is about. Now, remember too, Jupiter is also in the sign, a weak sign of its detriment in Gemini, where it's like taking too much intellect and not connecting with feelings well. Now, watch what happens here, you guys. Magical stuff in astrology, right? Jupiter in Mercury sign, Gemini. Mercury in Jupiter sign, Pisces. That means they can actually work together. They give each other the gifts they need to function well. Jupiter in Gemini will give some of the logic and intellect that Mercury in Pisces is kind of missing and forgetting or has fallen by the wayside. And Mercury and in Pisces is going to give some of the energy back to Jupiter, that Gemini energy back to Jupiter. So they're in what we call mutual reception, where they're in the sign that they rule for each other in opposite signs. Mercury usually rules Gemini, Jupiter usually rules Pisces. So they actually can give each other a gift and make sure that neither one of them falls too far off the track, which is really good in Mercury square Jupiter. Because what's Mercury square Jupiter all about? It's about thinking big. It's about having a big plan for the future. We can tap into some of these visions of the Mercury Pisces, the right brain, grander visions, sensing the connection, seeing how it can affect the future, and use the Jupiter in Gemini to get that stuff going, to make the mind go into the logical part and start organizing the plan, getting the details down, because that's the weakness of not only Mercury in Pisces, but Mercury square Jupiter is overlooking the details. We have this wide ranging vision, and we've got a lot of information that we've been exposed to lately. And it's adding to this incredible potential that we feel of the possibilities that could be in our life, And so it's a great time to work on long range goals because we have the gift of foresight when Mercury is square Jupiter. So, in particular, business goals is a good thing to work on here. Okay. Now, but drawing in any extra information that you need, especially in your creative process, go back to the Jupiter and Gemini, pull out the information you need and bring it back to the Mercury and Pisces, right? But this is normally good for business too, because you could have some really grandiose creative business ideas right now. And Mercury, Jupiter, you might not get the details down, but Jupiter in Gemini is like, no, like, let's apply the intellect to this. Let's get down to the facts. Let's get to the useful kind of stuff. So, most of the time, Mercury in Pisces and Mercury Jupiter square is like, has a tendency to just, I don't want to be bothered with those details. But Jupiter in Gemini can bring it back right? Now, here's one of the problems with this one, too. And we got to be careful with Mercury and Jupiter operating together as it is, because we can get really pompous and blow ourselves up. We have these great ideas, and we're right? We're arrogant about it. We're self righteous about it. We're like, we know we're right about this, right? So we have to be really, really careful about that, and not putting that tone into our things, because that can make us sound like a know-it-all, and people then want us to mess up, or they're going to look for things to mess up. But the funny thing is, even when we do get self-righteous and arrogant with a Mercury Jupiter, it's such a positive energy that we continue to stay positive even despite that. So basically what we need to do is try to see if we can find a better approach to the way things we've been planning, and the way we've been planning and organizing things. And a key to that is remaining flexible and realizing, not getting that arrogant, that there may be flaws in your plans still, that other people might see some mistakes. So if we can maintain a degree of flexibility and not allow the mistakes to be something that we turn into an argument of self-righteousness, then we can really you know, have the right attitude to correct them and make another jump forward in our plans. So, basically, before you're making any agreements this week, make sure that you have all the facts straight. Make sure that you have the details taken care of, because if not, with these two in their weak signs, then, I'm going to guarantee that something is going to go off track, and you're going to have to, respond to like a fire drill or an accident. But, this enthusiastic attitude that this energy has should be able to carry the day. It should be able to keep us open and be able to self-correct and not take any of the issues too personally. All right, and then let's get to Sunday. Sunday is the day that finally, since what, December 6th or 7th, I think it was, first week in December, when Mars went retrograde at the beginning of Leo, slipped back into Cancer, has spent an incredible amount of time in Cancer, one of the signs that it is most weak in, and really is just very uncomfortable in Cancer. It is like in fall there. Now, remember, even though Mars is going direct this week, this is not a big release. Just like any other planet goes direct, at the station where it actually slows down and gets stationary. That's why I have an S under the Mars here, stationary. It's standing still from our perspective for several days. It's not moving forward or backwards. That really increases the energy of the Mars retrograde in Cancer energy. So it's not like, boom, we get out of this energy right away. In fact, Mars retrograde shadow period is much longer than a Mercury, because it's a much longer retrograde, right? It's something that goes 12 weeks or so. So Mars is going to remain in Cancer until April 19th. Almost 2 months still, and will not hit 5 or 6 degrees of Leo, the point where it went into retrograde motion in December, until April 30th. So we have 2.5 months of Mars in its shadow period. And what does that mean? In particular, with Mars in the weak Cancer, it's going to show that many of the decisions we made since early December came from a place of most likely fear of not having enough, of being triggered somehow and not thinking that we're getting enough of the nurturing needs we have, the resources we need, or whatever it may be, right? So, this is what's going to happen, is a lot of the decisions we made that were being driven either consciously or subconsciously by this energy of not having enough are going to start to manifest in real world, and they're probably not going to be anything like what we thought when we originally made that decision. And it's interesting, because we have a new administration. I've said this over and over again, in the middle of this Mars retrograde, that's made a lot of singular decisions based on a lot of fearful knee-jerk reaction stuff, And probably a lot of it's not going to work out. I mean, we can see already a lot of it's not going to work out because a lot of it just is not legal, and so, like, that will be a good example once again to follow along. But going back to your personal life, it's the same thing. If you were making decisions in the last 2 or 3 months based on resource scarcity or not getting nurturing, which I think a lot of people have been feeling, economically, and with resources being pinched on supply side, inflation, things like that. A lot of those decisions may not, what we decided then may end up having a wonky or off the tracks kind of result, not what we expected. And we have to remember now, Mars is full on in Cancer again for the next 2 months. So that means, once again, our decisions to act are being driven by our emotions. That's really sloppy for Mars. It does not want to have to process emotional content before it moves. In fact, that can be dangerous as far as Mars is concerned. That could threaten survival. The thing that happens is we are so driven by how we're feeling in general. So when we're down and we're not feeling good, we have a tendency to do nothing. When this, like, literally shut down, crawl into bed, or just get passive into escapism, do nothing. But when we're feeling good, that's when we activate and we really get going. So that's really one of the big cruxes of, once again, Mars and Cancer. How are we feeling? And that will show us how motivated we are on any particular day during this 2 months more of Mars and Cancer. Now, another thing to remember about Mars and Cancer, Cancer is the sign of home and family. And a lot of the emotional distress that we may be feeling because of the nurturing it needs may be based on that, like not being able to feel like we're providing enough for our family, maybe in this situation. And that can feel us upset. And unfortunately, many times when we do that, we project, the very people who we love the most, we will project those issues onto that insecurity. That is our family. What does that mean? It causes familial problems. Mars and Cancer can cause a lot of domestic strife, when people are not feeling secure. Also, your homes. This is a time where issues with your home literally can come up. So if you haven't taken care of that plumbing issue or whatever it may be, you're probably going to get another leak, and you're going to have to deal with it, So that's, one of, some of the places where we see that energy coming out. So then literally on that day, Mercury is going to trine that stationary Mars. Now remember, they're both weak. Mercury in the sign of its detriment and fall, Mars in the sign of its fall. But we will feel right away this energy of like, oh, there's been a switch in the energy. Maybe I can start to push forward with some of these ideas that I've been developing during this retrograde period. So we feel like Mercury's trine Mars can make us feel very confident about what we believe in, our belief systems, our opinions, our thoughts, and in a way that's very enthusiastic and positive. We won't let others' comments or things like pull the plug out of that and let the air out. Instead, we just like have this very lively energy, and we look at any problems or issues that come up as a challenge that even feeds that energy really more. Now, one of the things about this too is we feel like we have to get that message out. Now, what's really nice when it's a trine, we don't get super coercive where we get defensive reactions in reaction to the way that we're trying to push things. In fact, if anything, like I said, it gives us a positive attitude where we're like, well, let me convince you. I'll show you, in a very positive way that I'm right, and so it really helps us tackle issues that may have been festering for a while, and we can maybe talk them out if they're with other people, or just have the right attitude of seeing an obstacle as an opportunity to learn something and grow something for it. So it is a good day for messaging too, like getting your word out there, online or advertising, whatever it may be. Even public speaking. This is a great public speaking aspect too, and people will react well to that. So it's really nice energy. It's very innovative, it's very inventive, it's very forward looking, and it can really be a great release from the click of Mars going stationary. Maybe, like, if we're all, like, sensitive enough, we might even feel a little click when that happens, when Mars goes direct and this trine kicks in. But it really is something too good for negotiating. We really cut to the heart of the matter, or to the chase, very quickly. Now, what's interesting too, I don't have it on the board, but Mercury is actually semi-square Pluto this day too. And I think that really shows we can get some very deep insights into our own thought processes and into the thought processes of others. And that can add a lot of sharpness and clarity to two of these planets that are not feeling very sharp, because they're in water signs that they don't like to be in, where there's not a lot of sharpness, there's a lot of softness. And so this can, we have to be a little bit careful, especially with the Mercury in Pisces, about getting a little bit judgmental and obsessive about trying to push that. But I think this is like a really good energy to do research also into any of these plans that you're having, so that way maybe we won't overlook all those details, and you'll get the information that you need for what you need to plan now. All right, you guys, well, that's what I got for this week. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Next week, we've got a new moon at 10 degrees Pisces. So that is going to be one of the big things that we look at. And then Venus is going to go retrograde right on the first day of the month. So that's going to be a big, big shift too, you guys. That's just like, we just got out of Mars retrograde, and now we're going to get Venus retrograde. It's not going to be easy. Relationships are going to be very, like, strained for about a couple months during that. All right. Like I said, Matt Lawton, the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free video. I really need you to pass it on. I give this out for free. What I really ask everyone to do is now pass that link along to somebody else. If you'd like to give a donation to the blog, it does cost me a little money to put it out. My Cash App is $ Matthew Lawton, all one word, 2 T's, capital M and L. Venmo at Matthew Lawton, capital M, capital L, hyphen in the middle. No amount is too small. $5, whatever you guys want to give. There's no amount too small. The best way to support me is when you are ready for that reading. If you're watching my blog, you've had an interest in astrology, that means, right? And you haven't had your chart done professionally. If you really don't know your astrology, you really need to get that done as soon as you can, because it can be very eye-opening and really help you change your life, and work with energy instead of, like, half the time against it and wondering why your life isn't going harmoniously. I've been doing charts for over 20 years. You never leave your chart. It's with you everywhere. You buy new cars and you spend thousands of dollars, and that car eventually dies, but the chart is always with you. Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Figure out what some of that energy is. You can control the energy around you, but you have to be aware of it first, right? So do that. And there's all kinds of readings I do too. Relationship readings, fixed stars, if you're looking for deeper soul purpose, which I really recommend. If you know that, predictive reading you should get every year to see how the charts are hitting. Child readings, like all kinds of stuff. Elections, if you're looking for the best timing for an event to start, like a marriage or business. Horary questions, if you're looking for an answer to something, look at the website. It has it all there. The calendar page is there too. The prices are there. I can work with you with your finances if that's difficult for you. And yeah, and then, please pass the link along. And I'd love to see you all soon again and keep coming back. Also, like I said in the beginning, beginners class looks like we're going to do live ones soon. Remember, they're always available on podcasts for anybody who wants to do them like that. But we may start a weekly or bi-weekly beginners class really soon. It looks like I have enough students. So if you're interested in that, let me know. We're talking about probably about $25 a class. So it's not a tough amount to come up with. And if you are a group and you'd like me to do a workshop for you, a lecture for you, a class for you, mini readings for an event, anything like that, get in touch with me here at the website, www.astrologicalwinds.com, or my direct email is matthure823@gmail.com. I would love to do that for your group. We can even do it on Zoom, right? So many things we have options for this year, these years, now that we have all this technology in front of us. All right, folks, thanks you so much. I will see you all next week, and we will look at that new moon in Pisces, and we'll talk about Venus and its retrograde cycle. And then I will probably do the monthly for March the week after, since there'll probably be a lot to talk about next week. So I will see you all then. Thanks once again for all your support. Please pass the link along now.